And now, insurance-minded speeches from Geico.
It's a common expression, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. However, what if the horse's mouth is filled with useful insurance tools? This is the exact case with the Geico app. Yes, the app is free and therefore a gift horse. However, look inside the app and behold, emergency roadside assistance, digital ID cards, bill pay. Get the Geico app. Look it in the mouth. Get amazing services. Thank you.
Family Network Radio, giving a voice to the special needs community worldwide. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome back to With a Brush of Love Presents. This is your resident sensory design and color expert, Lauren S. Henry, and I'm very excited to be able to welcome Barbara Schwartz, the founder of Equilibrium Healing. And it's an exciting opportunity to learn all about healing the entire body, the entire person, rather than just focusing on one aspect. So welcome, Barbara Schwartz. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me. I'm trying to.
It's my pleasure.
I'm trying to get off the website so I don't have double.
Oh yes, I can hear that. Just
I'm going to do that.
Turn it off or hit stop or.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Stop. Okay. Joining us this morning. Uh-oh. Sorry. Oh my gosh.
Can you just close it?
You can also mute the volume on your computer.
Oh yes. I can do that too. Okay, perfect. I think I've got it.
Okay, great.
There we are.
So now we're all set. Not a problem. Not a problem.
Okay.
So let's just start off by you telling us a bit about what equilibrium healing is and, how it came to be.
Okay. Well, as you mentioned, equilibrium is about whole person or whole child-centered care. We have to look at all the different areas that make us up, that are part of what's going on. And so I look at the whole person, and I look at it in a way with the brain and the body in an integrated, non-medication technique way. If you imagine, for example, you've had a light bulb, and the listeners have had a light bulb that's been flickering, and you just tighten the light bulb, sometimes it stops flickering, right? You've had that?
Yeah, of course.
And that's basically what I'm doing. I'm making the connections between the brain and the body solid so that the person, the child, can be their best self. We're getting to the root causes of the problems. It's based on the physiology. And so that's what equilibrium is about. It's about finding the reasons and not having to cope, not having to struggle, and really not having to have strategies, because when you get to the physiological, the core reasons why particular things are going on, then you're functioning in a better way. It's kind of like, when you tune up your car, if it's not working, every 3,000, 6,000, whatever, you tune it up and it runs better. And so that's basically what I'm doing with equilibrium, tuning up the brain and the body, making those connections solid, finding out where those connections are not connected, and making them connected, kind of putting in the autistic community, we have the picture of the puzzle, right?
Mhm.
And it's the pieces are all over the place.
Right.
I like to think of connecting those pieces, and so we have a solid puzzle. We have the whole picture by what we're doing with equilibrium.
Well, obviously it sounds extremely important, and I know that it makes an enormous difference because one aspect of anything is only working on one aspect, and any person with any challenge has much more going on than just healing or even putting a Band-Aid on one area. There's always more going on. So I think it's obvious that having a much more holistic approach in terms of working with all aspects of a person's challenge is really optimal. Can you tell us a little bit about how you arrived at creating equilibrium healing, what your background is, and what motivated you to, create this whole scenario for the business?
Absolutely. My background is I'm a retired teacher with over 25 years of teaching experience with a master's degree in early childhood education. What I saw as time went on was less and less focus with the kids, more and more issues, more and more problems, and that caused me to start looking and doing researching and finding out what are the things that we could do, that I could do in my classroom that would help to get the kids more focused and, more on track. And that was my quest to be able to do that. And it also came in another way. Actually, my gift is that I was going through some healing problems myself with candida and hypoglycemia. Candida is an overgrowth of yeast, and the hypoglycemia goes with it, the low blood sugar. And in my quest for looking for holistic answers, which I found, by the way, life changed for me. My whole outlook and everything that was going on changed. So I use that as my gift. That problem, so-called problem that I had, or challenge, brought me to the work that I'm doing today. I was introduced to one of the modalities that I'm working, actually a couple of the modalities that I'm working with now through my own healing process. And basically that's how I got started. While I was teaching, I was using one of the modalities called Brain Gym. Have you heard of that?
Absolutely.
Lauren?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So for your listeners that haven't, Brain Gym is part of an overall program called Educational Kinesiology, and the Brain Gym are movements that create new neurological patterns in the brain and the body. We are re-educating the brain and the body to work in a more automatic fashion where there's not, struggle and like I'm saying, coping. So I brought that into my classroom with amazing results. And when I sit down and meet with other professionals and parents, I show them examples of the befores and afters in a matter of minutes, how things change. Spelling correct, writing gets better, all kinds of things. Brain Gym was started for kids with learning difficulties by Dr. Paul Dennison and his wife, Gail Dennison, and it's now used in over 90 countries for people of all ages, for all different kinds of things. I'm a Brain Gym instructor, and the Brain Gym is the foundation of the work that I do.
So that was really the impetus for you to create something that was exactly like equilibrium healing. It's kind of what started you on that whole process.
It started me on the path, and as I say, I look at it and I talk about it as my gift because, that's what brought me to what I'm doing. And, I'm still teaching, but I'm teaching in a different way.
Right.
That
brings us to what you're working on now. Can you talk about what you're doing now, utilizing your background?
Absolutely. I work in a way that is, as I say, very holistic. I'm in touch with the latest scientific published research about all the things we're talking about, autism, attention deficit, all the related challenges. And what I do, and I get this research, on a daily basis, I apply it to my non-medication, whole person-centered approach. And, for example, there's been research that has shown that in the classroom, there's over 456 toxins, chemicals in classroom school cleaning products. Isn't that
just 456,
shocking?
huh?
That's all, right? And then parents wonder why, what's going on and why kids are sick. So, I can educate the schools, I can educate the parents, what's going on when your child is in school and they've got a runny nose or they come home with a cold, but they're fine on the weekend. Let's take a look at what's going on. Another research had to do with, this is really shocking. They did a study of the umbilical cords of some babies. Mm-hmm. There were over 256 toxins in the umbilical cords of newborn babies before they had a chance to, to be in this world. Pretty shocking.
It is. I mean, as much as shocking as it is, and it is, it's not as much of a surprise as one would think when you realize what is being ingested in, when we're breathing, when we're showering, in the water, in the food. It makes sense to some degree why that is happening.
Absolutely. We have to be educated, and this is what I'm doing when I'm working, with one-on-one with my clients. What's interesting is that a lot of times with, people that are going to many different therapies, and they are overloaded with so many therapies,
right.
The child is in the room and the parent is outside waiting. With equilibrium, the parent is in the room. Why? Because I want them to see what's going on. I want them to see before, when we started, how that child perhaps was writing or how they were walking or, how they, whatever the thing that we're working on. And what happens at the end and what happens during, so that they're totally involved, and they also are going to be documenting what's going on. So they're seeing, they're making a list or writing things of what they noticed, what went on. And then the following week they come back and they say, these are the things that happened during the week. So we have an ongoing record of what is happening based on the parents' observations and, of course, my observations as well.
Which I think is, again, it's I can't even understand another way to go, because if you can't see the before and after, you can't see the results in a really, I'm not even sure what the right word is, honestly, but if it's visceral, it's right in front of you, it's something that's tangible, and you can actually, there's a barometer for what they're accomplishing.
That's right.
And I think a parent needs to see that when it happens so instantaneously. And I know that you've been able to even show the difference in one's ability just in penmanship within an immediate amount of time from doing some of the work that you do, which is really remarkable. You can't argue with that.
And what's nice about it, too, even I like to consider it two ways. Number one, I am complimenting other work that they're doing with other therapists. Mm-hmm. But because I've put so many things together in one place, I like to consider it one-stop shopping, so to speak, because we're looking at sensory issues. We're looking at, developmental issues. We're looking at nutrition. I'm not a nutritionist, but we're looking at what supplements, what essential oils. I work with essential oils. We're looking at what foods are good, what foods are not good, what foods are supportive, what foods are not supportive, what happens when, say, for example, a tantrum comes up. Well, maybe that child didn't eat for 3 or 4 hours and the blood sugar went down. So, it's a whole education process, and that's where it comes in, to be able to show the parents, well, okay, he had a candy bar, or he didn't eat anything, and so his behavior is a little out of sync right now.
Well, I like your one-stop shop kind of thought process. The
again,
of holistic healing, if you will.
Yeah, and by saying that, I'm not taking anything away from anyone else, but I feel that, I'm able to I'm able to zero in and perhaps even say, okay, well, for example, I work very closely with the other therapists and other doctors. And I have a little girl who is 7 years old. The parents heard me speak. I often speak at different, parent support groups. So if any of your parents are listening, they'd like me to come and hear me live, they can, get a hold of me through my email or my phone number, 800-257-0743, or Barbara@equilibriumhealing.com.
And
anyway,
we'll make sure we get all that out to them as well again with clarity at the end, too. So don't worry, we'll get everything out.
Good. So this little girl is 7, speaks as she wants to, but not very much, and is just cute little girl, all right? I just had a meeting with her doctor, and we put our heads together because we're on the same page. We do the same type of holistic type of work, so we understand each other's work. And we put our heads together and we said, okay, now this is what you're doing, this is what I'm doing. Let's retest and see where she's at, and then let's do some other kinds of things. So I'm definitely working with other people. Now let me tell you a little bit about her. I think your listeners would like to hear some of the success stories. So this little girl, 7, has never had a bowel movement in the toilet. Lovely conversation for the morning, right? In diapers, in beautiful panties, she's dressed lovely and all of that. Never, right? And the people are telling her, the different teachers and whoever, have her empty it herself. I said, oh, no, this is a physiological problem. This is not something that she's doing because she wants to be, bad or whatever.
Right.
There's something going on in the brain-body connection. So we start to do several different kinds of things, within my process. And 2 weeks ago, Mom comes in very excited. Oh, tell Barbara what happened. So I already knew what she was going to say, because that was the main thing this mom wanted, because it's like, what do you, right? And so the mom tells me the story that babysitter couldn't find her. She was at home, but she just couldn't find her. And finally she went up into the bathroom and found this lovely little girl sitting on the toilet. She went there herself, sitting on the toilet doing her thing. And Mom, the first wrote in her book, right, in my book that I keep for her, this is the first time in her whole life that she did the BM in the toilet, and it's continuing,
right.
And
how long did it take for her to accomplish that when working with you?
Well, we've been working together for about 10 sessions now, and we've been working with that on and off with other, along with other things. And, between all the different kinds of things that we worked with, it clicked. And, it's like getting the brain and body organized.
Which I think is, again, an obvious, important thing that many people tend to overlook without realizing it, because, again, it's not something that you consciously would immediately connect and say, that's what the problem is. You're always one always tends to look for a physiological issue, a larger, more like an umbrella issue that is much bigger than perhaps the idea that something's just not connecting between the brain and the body. And not that that's not something that is, it can or could be, I should say, a larger issue, but it's not something that I think most people tend to look at immediately as a culprit.
Yes.
So I think that what you're saying is obviously important, but really revealing for people to start to consider. And I know that, as you say, since you're working with non-medication, if you will, which I really like, you work with foods, you work with nutrition, as you said, you work with a lot of essential oils. And can you talk a little bit about that aspect, like what all the different things are that you tend to work with from a holistic approach that allows you to be successful without the use of jumping right into mainstream medication?
Yes, definitely. And let me just preface this by saying if a child is on medication, that's fine too, because my work works just as well. In fact, I have some clients that are on medication, and we are making fantastic progress.
So it doesn't mean that somebody can't, shouldn't or can't be utilizing both. Obviously, you can do, coming to you whether they're on medication or not is what's important. It's not as though you can't work with someone who is utilizing meds they've been prescribed. Correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And
so that's
what happens sometimes, and of course it's not my place, but what happens sometimes is that they are so much more improved that they, reduce or, with their doctor's help, of course, reduce or even get off the medication. I've had that happen with some people as well. So let me talk a little bit about some of the things, as you mentioned. We talked somewhat about Brain Gym and the things that can happen with Brain Gym, improvement in writing, motor planning. We're working with all of the root causes through the different approaches. So with the Brain Gym, we're looking at with aromatherapy. Those are essential oils. Those are the essences from the plants that help to bring oxygen to all the cells of the body and keep us healthy. They have, a lot of healing properties, and they are definitely a big part of what I work with, with the kids and and their families as well. They help to make changes. For example, let's talk about one little boy, another 7-year-old, and I was meeting with Mom in a very noisy restaurant, and she told me that he's going to start screaming, and I'm a teacher. I know about those things.
Right.
It's no big deal, right? So, that's what happened immediately. He started screaming, and I had one of my oils with me called Peace and Calming. It's a Young Living oil and wonderful company. And I just I gave some to the mom. I put it on her palm of her hand, and I knew that she was thinking, yeah, right, this is really going to help. And anyway, I told her to put it on the back of the head, which is, the emotional center, the limbic center. Mm-hmm. And within 2 seconds, he stopped screaming.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, that I know, we agree, as many people do in this community, how important sensory input is and sensory surroundings. And that's another thing I wanted to ask you, because I know that you completely understand what the ramifications are if one's sensory surroundings are completely adverse to what they need.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to get your input on that as well. So you use the essential oils, and you use scent and aroma and the things that you were just explaining also with regard to nutrition. And I use color and lighting and spatial organization and tactile elements. How important do you think the sensory surroundings are with regard to, design in one's space to the same children that you work with, since you're kind of more internal and I'm focusing more on the input that's coming into them, the sensory input that is surrounding them? Can you talk about your feeling regarding that?
The work that you do is amazing and wonderful and very, very much needed. For example, if you're talking about lighting, you have, soft lighting. If you have fluorescent lights, these are a killer in the classroom. The colors are very, very important to be calm to what each child needs and feels comfortable with. taking it back into the classroom when I was a teacher. You know, you had the bulletin boards that you could cover with these bright fluorescent type colors, or you could use the softer colors. And I noticed the difference when I, used the fluorescent ones and changed to the softer pastel colors. So it's very, very important because let's look at it this way. I always ask the parents, for example, how is your child when you take them into the shopping center or the grocery store? Oh no, he's terrible. He acts out. Well, again, it's that sensory overload. It's the fluorescent lights. It's all those kinds of things. There's too many things coming at that they can't handle, that they can't organize, that the brain at that moment can't organize in their system. So what you're doing is changing that and calming the brain down in their environment. And I'm calming the brain down in, that follows through in their everyday life as well.
Right. And I so obviously when you work in concert, the results are just, again, better than I think anyone can honestly anticipate, assuming that the only way to accomplish anything is through the sole use of medication. And we're not saying that you shouldn't use it. We're just saying all of the things that you are able to accomplish without the use of medication in a way that is cohesive, meaning that you use several different things. Just like if you have an occupational therapist and a speech therapist, you get better results. So when you use all these things together, the results are so much better, whether you're using medication or not, and we certainly don't say that you should not use it. Whatever is going to benefit your child is what's important. Absolutely. But anything that you can utilize separate or prior to medication, if and when possible, might be a way to go too, because we can always go to the medication. But, that being said, whatever your doctor says is what, within reason, certainly you should do to ease the issues for your child. And, of course, we understand that.
Right. And then when, the parents, of course, as well as the child, I mean, imagine how the child feels. I just want to give you a couple of examples. I have a little 11-year-old boy who is high-functioning Asperger's, and he could not stand the garbage being collected outside his window. He couldn't have his mother vacuum. He couldn't stand the sounds, which is very, very common with this population. And, again, through our work, we were able to organize his system so that is not a problem anymore. Now,
and that's what... Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Imagine how he felt, never knowing when a sound was gonna come about.
Right.
The same thing. I was working with a 25-year-old young woman who they heard me speak at one of the conferences, and she hated to go to the movies because she never knew what sound was going to come and what sound was going to bother her. So you imagine living, basically in a state of fear, right? And you're not in what I call in an integrated state because you're always hypervigilant. She can go to the movies now. She can do other things. She can go up and talk to a stranger. They were in New York, and she went up to ask for directions, which is something she never would have done.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. I mean, being able to function in the world and not be constantly anticipating what the next horrific thing is going to be that comes at you, which is how a lot of people like this see things. It's coming at you instead of something you're experiencing.
That's right. And then, trying to do things and not being successful and not really knowing why you're not successful, what does that do, to your self-esteem?
Right. You end up with none, practically.
Right, exactly. And I was working with one little boy who, again, they're high-functioning Asperger's, and he was working in school with occupational therapists, and one of the things they were working on was putting your hand in a box. You can't see what the what the objects are, but describe what they are. He couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. But we did our session based around this, and changed the physiology, asked the system what he needed to do to be able to make that happen, and within a few minutes, he got his hand back in the box, in the little bag, and was able to identify everything down to the nth degree in terms of description.
And this is exciting stuff when there are basic things you can learn about how to help your child integrate a lot of these frustrations. It doesn't always have to be, as I've said in the past, some huge major scenario that needs to be fixed. It can often be something very simple that can be fixed, or I hate to use the word fixed, adjusted perhaps, with very simple solutions if you know what to look for. And on that note, I think we're going to be taking a quick break, so I'm just going to say to everyone, stay tuned, and we'll come right back with Barbara Schwartz of Equilibrium Healing. Stay tuned, folks.
Hi, I'm Michelle Colvart. I'm one of the 10 Regional Abilities Expo ambassadors. And the Abilities Expo is held in 5 different areas all across the country. And it is really a one-stop shopping place for people with disabilities like me who want to find out more about cutting-edge technologies and be able to participate in workshops and find out more about different resources that are available to people with disabilities. There's fun exhibits, there's amazing people, fun energy. So come on out to the Abilities Expo. You can find out more at abilitiesexpo.com, and I look forward to seeing you there.
And that was Abilities Expo, a great place to go if you need to get any information about the newest and most cutting-edge information and equipment that you might need regardless of what your disability may be. So check that out in the near future, and let's welcome back Barbara Schwartz of Equilibrium Healing. We're here at With a Brush of Love Presents, and me, your resident sensory designer and color expert, Lauren S. Henry. And we were just talking about an entire holistic approach to supporting all different types of individuals with learning disabilities, ADD, ADHD, autism, all different types of issues based on aromatherapy, natural oils, nutrition, sensory integration issues, and obviously the use of medication. Barbara Schwartz is an expert in these areas, and I'm welcoming you back. If you have any questions, please feel free to call at 424-220-1804. You can also chat with us on the Family Network radio page and on Blog Talk Radio. So, Barbara, now that we've sort of covered that information, what I'm wanting to learn more about is also a lot of people have a question about how visual perception issues can also be a part of the physiological challenges that people are encountering. Can you talk a bit about that?
Absolutely. One of the things that I work with is a visual perceptual problem. It's called scotopic sensitivity syndrome.
That's a mouthful.
Yes, it's a mouthful, or /Irwin syndrome, which is not as much of a mouthful, who's the lady who discovered that.
And Helen Irwin, right?
Helen Irwin, yes.
Yeah.
And basically what it means is that when the frequency of light passes through the brain, some of those frequencies cause problems or distortions, like light sensitivity, like ADD, like not being able to go up and down the stairs or the escalator, writing problems, headaches, even migraine headaches. Sometimes let's talk about adults with migraine headaches. That could be a piece of the puzzle. So I've been trained in that just as well as I've been trained in the brain gym, and I am what we call a screener. So I do the evaluation to see what the problems are and what we need to do to overcome those problems. For example, I'll give you two examples. I myself am scotopic. In fact, I wrote an article in the LA Family magazine a few years ago, so if you go to their website, you probably could archive the article, or if anybody wants it, I can email it to them. So I was actually meeting with the directors of a school that works with autistic kids, and I wear these dark glasses because I'm severely scotopic, and light sensitivity bothers me, and black and white print. So, and isn't it interesting how we teach what we need, right? So I always it's a real good conversation starter, and I will say, I'm not trying to be a Hollywood star with these dark glasses, and that's how I kind of get into explaining what it's about and what the problems are and so on.
Right.
And as I start to talk to the director of the school, it's very obvious that she has this problem. She's telling me, "Oh yes, I can't. I can't stand the light. I can't read for more than 2 minutes, and these different things that she's telling me." I say, "Okay, we need to do this evaluation." And I said, many of your kids at your school, this is a piece of the puzzle. Whether it's 10 to 12% of the gifted population, 46% of the learning challenged population are scotopic. And it's something that we can reduce or eliminate the problem with. Donna Williams, who wrote a book and talks about how she could never see a whole picture. She only saw pieces of a person's face or of an environment, and and then using the lenses after you get the evaluation with me, then you go and you get specific lenses that are much different than what you would get at an ophthalmologist or optometrist's office. They're specifically for your brain frequency, and they make a dramatic change. For example, I had one little boy. I was working with his sister, who was 12, and Mom was telling me this boy, 17, was always had a tutor his whole life. His whole life he had a tutor, and he was very verbal, very intelligent. I mean, you could just see that in him. And we asked him the questions, and he answered enough of those questions, and it's like, oh, you know what? We had got to do this evaluation for you. And it turns out that he needed eventually the lenses, and helped him to relax and to do much, much better in his whole life. Not only
it just goes to show you that color makes an enormous difference in so many aspects of our lives, not just in the areas that that we use them at With a Brush of Love in terms of design, but even with regard to glasses and how one sees information coming at them on the page. That the basic white color that most of us are looking at paper, with information, isn't always something that is going to allow us to compute what we're looking at. That color can really make a big difference in how much we're able to take in and information we can disseminate. That's what this approach is about, correct?
That's right, and again, it's a piece of the puzzle, and the color just makes a total difference. I mean, I have another 13-year-old who she was always wearing a baseball cap. She was kind of a tomboyish-looking boy, and her mom was a very feminine-looking woman. And I said to her, why do you think she's wearing a baseball cap? Oh, she just wants to aggravate me. I said, let me tell you. And she was wearing the baseball cap to shield her from the light,
right,
from the sunlight, or from the light inside. And so, it's an education process. And so she got her, she did the testing with me, and then she got her glasses, and she was able to follow through. Her grandmother was with her and watching the changes. She said it's been amazing. Her sessions, she's been able to complete her studies and follow through on assignments. And, there's a grandmother. I'm so grateful from what we've learned in your work. This is what she said before. Without you, she would still be fighting a losing battle.
And see, it's just so interesting how many parents assume that it's something that a child is doing consciously to, rebel in some way, as opposed to figuring out there might be a more practical and genuine reason as to why their behavior is what it is, and especially when a child or even a young adult can't really express it in a simplistic, straightforward manner.
That's right, and and like I said, the parent and the child is frustrated. I'll give you another example. Here's it's not about the color, but it's a good example about the frustration. Little boy, 4 years old. Every time he goes for a haircut, and many of your listeners can relate to this because it's a sensory issue, goes for a haircut, he tantrums. He can't stand anyone cutting his hair, right? Mm-hmm. And after a few sessions, not many, his mom was actually helping me at the autism walk a number of years ago, and she gets a call from him, and the call says, "Mom, I just got my hair cut, and I didn't cry." Mm. Can you imagine what that did for that child and the parent? The sensory issue or the tactile issue was taken care of, and it wasn't.
I actually, it's exciting to hear all these results and these stories, so I'd like to talk a little bit about your process. How do your sessions work? What are some of the first steps toward the type of successes and, I hate to use the word recoveries, but advances, if you will, that happen, in your work? What happens? What occurs in your sessions, and how do you document it?
Okay. So the first thing that I do is I meet with the parents without the child. It's a 2-hour consultation, and in that time, obviously we're going over some of the things that are going on, the problems. I have developed for me evaluation sheets where the parents can look at the different problems and evaluate how serious they are. And based on that, every 4 weeks I meet with parents, again, separately, to go over these questionnaires, these evaluation sheets, to see where the improvements and the changes have taken place. In addition to then, after that, I meet with the child, usually, and the parent, one of the parents. Usually it's an hour session. If the child is, very young, it could be, half hour, maybe twice a week, or, we make that work. But generally an hour works. And in that session, one of the ways that I work basically body, mind, and spirit. It's an integrative approach. And I work with something called kinesiology or muscle testing. Have you heard of that?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and actually we call it muscle checking because when you think of a test, remember when we were in school and we think of a test, it's, So anyway, we ask the body, the brain and the body questions. It's a very, very scientific approach. It looks like it's easy, but it really takes a lot of knowledge to be able to do that. And we get information as to what we need to do within a session and, and in what order we need to do it. For example, when you go to a restaurant, you have a menu, and you choose from that menu. Well, I have a menu of services, over 20 or more different services that the brain and body can choose from. And, the brain and body has intelligence. It has a cellular memory, so we know exactly when asking the right way, we know exactly what we need to do. So within that session, it's different for each person. It's different at each time. So it could be that we're using something from Brain Gym. It could be we're using something from Brain Gym and essential oils. We could be looking at color in a way that's what we call the chakras. The chakras would have to do with colors and the organs of the body. So we're looking at what we need to do to organize that system within all of the different approaches that I have. We do what we call a pre-activity. So, maybe the child will be writing their name, and we're observing and we're looking. And then we do the actual, we call it a balance, we do the actual process, and then we redo the activity so that we can see the improvements that have taken place. And there's always some kind of improvement that we see, whether it's, more focused, whether it's holding the pencil differently, whether it's, the writing has totally improved. But there's always something. We're always looking for before and after. And then we also have something that we call home play. In Brain Gym, we call it home play as opposed to home work. So based on what we've done in a session, we want to reinforce that. So there may be, 2 or 3 things to do to help reinforce that until the next session. That can give you a little clearer picture.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think a lot of people, especially parents, would want to understand what some of the work is that's happening that creates such a kind of a rapid change when you've been frustrated for so long. Of course, you're just ecstatic that it's happening, but it's very interesting how really organic scenarios such as aromatherapy, essential oils, the type of work that you're doing allows a better sort of, as you say, organization and connection between the brain and body, and how quickly improvements can be made. That's really an enormous thing. And I also know that it works differently, just like my work, for every single individual. What are the age ranges that you tend to work with, and do you find that some of the things that you're talking about work better with younger children than older, or does it make a difference whatsoever?
It really doesn't make a difference, nor does it make a difference what label has been given to a person. My youngest client was 2 months old with colic. My oldest was 92 with vertigo and everything in between. So it's really all about the energy, because we are all energy, and it's all about the energy of the person, and is it in harmony or is it out of harmony? Is it in balance? Is it out of balance? Is it in equilibrium or is it not in equilibrium, right? That's why I chose that name for my company.
Which I think is a great name. I think it says it all pretty much. But, I mean,
exactly.
Is there any particular I hate to use the word ailment, but I would say challenge that any individual may deal with, since you're mentioning things like colic and vertigo, which aren't learning disabilities per se, but are there any type of challenges that can't be addressed in a positive way with these types of supports and solutions that you're teaching?
I haven't found anything that can't be addressed. I mean, I've worked with a gentleman with Lou Gehrig's disease, and he made major improvements while he was working with me. So, it's just about finding the root causes and finding out the solutions. We know the problems. We may not know the reason for the problems, which is where equilibrium comes in, and then we need the solutions, which is where equilibrium comes in.
So what else would you want us to know? What are if somebody's just joining us and we have, like 11 minutes left, believe it or not, what are the things that you would want us as your audience to most know about your work? Because I know there's so much information, but could you just pick out the most important headlines and that would be great.
Okay. Well, what I'd like to say is I provide help, hope, and healing. And that is very, very important because, parents are struggling to find the answers. And, I've helped so many people. What I offer is a free consultation, so people can call me at 800-257-0743, and we'll find out what's going on because, again, it's an education process. Right. They can go to my website, equilibriumhealing.com, You can find out a little bit more about me. You can also, on the events page, you can hear, well, you'll hear this on the events page, but you'll also hear the mom's experience with the essential oils on the events page. If people are interested in learning more about Brain Gym, I have a Brain Gym introductory class. I also have a free class on using the aromatherapy essential oils for your child and your family, and it's a protocol. And again, it makes such changes that it's just really, really amazing. And so I want to be able to bring that to more and more to the public. And also, if there are people that are interested in that, I actually would like to be able to do, a scientific study that can be published in one of the magazines, the scientific magazines. So let your people know about that as well. It's a free class, so it's a good thing that you can learn and you'll experience it yourself.
Well, that's definitely an exciting piece of information that people would be able to take advantage of a free class using aromatherapy and essential oils for their, a child and the family.
And the family, exactly.
Which is, very important because there's not that disconnect.
Right.
Between the child and the family.
Right, and aromatherapy has been around. It's man's first medicine. It's been around since 5,000 years in many different cultures. So, I
also know that while there's a few, I just wanted to touch on this because we're losing time.
Yeah.
While there's a few essential oils that affect the majority of us in a similar way, a lot of oils affect each of us very differently. So what could work really amazingly well for one individual would really have an adverse effect on another, correct? So it shouldn't be an assumed thing that if something works for one, it's immediately going to work for the other.
Well, it's not that it's going to have an adverse effect, but, maybe some people are drawn more to one than another. And just because you might not be drawn to one also doesn't mean you don't need it. A lot of times it means you definitely do need it. So,
interesting. Okay.
But you're not going to have an adverse effect. The only thing is that, your body's going to be detoxifying the chemicals, all those environmental toxins that we talked about. So maybe we could do another show on that another time. But, all of this is so important. It's getting to fit all those pieces together so we have a completed puzzle.
It really is a puzzle. All of this information for each individual is very much a personal puzzle. I'm glad you used that word. And clearly there's just so much information to learn and to glean from all of the work that you do. Is there any contact information that you've not yet given our audience, and is there anything else? I just want to make sure they all know how to reach you. Have we gotten all the contact information out?
Let me do it again. So my website is equilibriumhealing.com. You can reach me by phone at 800-257-0743. You can email me at barbara@equilibriumhealing.com. So those are my three ways to contact me. And,
Great.
People want more information, I can talk with them and help them to understand in a different way, in a complementary way, as to what's going on and what we can do to help, to help the process. There's so many stories that I didn't get to tell here, but I'm sure that your listeners got the gist of the things that can be helped.
Oh, yes, you have tremendous success stories. And are you mainly located, do you work mainly only with those in the California area, or are you able to work with people in a more national, can any of your clients be out of state in the nation?
Yes, I work either by phone or, technology these days. We can do it, with Skype. So we definitely can work out of the area. As well as in California. And I do have people.
That's important because I think a lot of people are concerned that if they can't physically bring their child to you, that they wouldn't be able to have access to really work still with you. And that's not the case, right?
That's not the case at all. We definitely can work. We definitely can work no matter where the distance is. It doesn't matter. Okay,
good. Excellent. I can't thank you enough for being here with us today and sharing so much incredible information. Everyone, obviously, you hear there's an enormous amount of knowledge that Barbara Schwartz brings to the table. And, again, equilibriumhealing.com. Check it out. There's a ton of information on her website. She really does incredible work and clearly has an enormous amount of success stories to share, which I think is very exciting.
Let me just tell you one more thing, okay?
Go ahead. Go right ahead.
So many kids have the seizures, and I've worked successfully with both grown-ups and adults with seizures, so I want just people to know about that.
Oh, that's great. Okay, that's another super point. Thank you for bringing that up. I know a lot of kids on the autism spectrum are challenged by seizures as well from digestive issues, and as you were saying, candida and over, yeast, et cetera, and so forth. So thank you for bringing that up. And just for those of you who don't realize, she also wrote a chapter about brain gym and Victory Over ADD. That's Victory Over ADD. And where can people access that book?
They can get a hold of Deborah Merlin, who is the author of the book. Many of us wrote chapters in there, MERLIN, or probably you can get it through any of the bookstores.
Okay, great. Another good thing to know. I just wanted to get that out there.
So thank you. Appreciate that.
You're very welcome, and thank you for joining us. Remember, you can also listen to this radio broadcast or download it from Blog Talk Radio, and it will also be on my media page in the next week or so on brushoflove.com. So we look forward to connecting with you again in another couple of weeks for our next program. Thank you so much, Barbara Schwartz. And remember, everyone, whatever you do, do it with a brush of love. Thanks so much, and have a great day.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye.
There is more to me, Queen Eliara of Elfgard, than my elven magic. Just as there's more to Geico than saving you money, Geico also gives you 24/7 access to licensed agents online, on the phone, or on the Geico app. And while I am a mighty elf queen, I am also a mighty big fan of barbecue potato chips. Minions! More smoky mesquite.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
Run to Old Navy right now to get up to 50% off store-wide. Stock up on all of Old Navy's best-selling style faves, like tees from $5, dresses from $12, and jeans for the family from $15. Plus, get up to 75% off clearance. But you'd better hurry. At these prices, Old Navy's style faves are sure to go fast. Run to Old Navy right now. Valid 1/13 to 1/22. Select styles only. Clearance valid through 1/22.